Right guys and girls, this is a long play and review for Manic Miner on the AMSTRAD CPC released by Software Projects in 1984. And here's one of the many box art covers for Manic Miner, this one probably being, in my eyes, the most iconic. The Specky original had many different covers, but with the Amstrad we get even more because it was re-released by Amsoft in 1985, and it's that version which we will be playing today. But if you want further box art, here's the Spanish version. And finally, the boring German version. Anyway, after Bruce Lee the other week we covered on the channel, it's time to look at another absolutely early classic platformer. And again, I can't believe I haven't covered this before on my channel. Anyway, let's get to the long play, and as I said earlier, I'd be using the Amsoft version. But even with that re-release, there's still a bug with the keyboard reading on anything other than a 464. So yep, you'll have trouble on a 664 or 6128 or a Plus with playing this. So I'm actually using a bug fixed version by CNG Soft here. There we go. Right, straight into the loading screen on the Amsoft version. I've got some credits there, we'll come to those coders in a minute. And the Blue Danube music, classic. A slightly different title screen to the ZX Spectrum original, but we'll come on to that later. Now, of course, Manic Miner is one of the most famous 8-bit home computer games of the 80s in the UK. I mean, do I really need to go over the story of the original Specky game that's been covered before by 1,000 different YouTube videos and magazine articles? No, but I will give you the basics just in case you've been living under a rock for the last 40 years. So the Specky original was solely made by the legendary and mythical genius Matthew Smith for Bug Byte in 1983. Later brought to Software Projects, a company he co-founded and re-released the game. It was inspired by the Atari game Miner 2049er, and it went on to sell millions of copies across multiple home computer formats, as it was converted to basically everything going at the time. And of course, it spawned the famous sequel in Jet Set Willy. Now that's a game we'll definitely have to cover at some point because there's something unique about the Amstrad version. Anyway, we get a rolling demo here of all 20 screens of the game. And let you have a little watch of this. And you would have had to pay £8.95 on cassette for the Amstrad version back in 1985. So the story of the game: Miner Willie, while prospecting down Surbiton Way, stumbles upon an ancient, long-forgotten mine shaft. On further exploration, he finds evidence of a lost civilization far superior to our own, which use automatons to dig deep into the Earth's core to supply the essential raw materials for their advanced industry. After centuries of peace and prosperity, the civilization was torn apart by war and lapsed into a long dark age, abandoning their industry and machines. Nobody, however, thought to tell the mine robots to stop working, and through countless aeons they had steadily accumulated a huge stockpile of valuable metals and minerals, and Miner Willie realises that he now has this opportunity to make his fortune by finding the underground store. Can you take the challenge and guide Willie through the underground caverns to the surface and riches? In order to move to the next chamber, you must collect all the flashing keys in the room while avoiding nasties like poisonous pansies, spiders, slime, and worst of all, manic mining robots. When you have all the keys, you can enter the portal, which will now be flashing. The game ends when you have been got or fallen heavily 3 times. And that is the story from the manual, both in the Amstrad and Specky versions. So yeah. Now, normally we talk about other conversions of a game to other systems, but there's just too many and too much to talk about here. But I can tell you that it was at least converted to the BBC Micro, Commodore 64, Commodore 16 and Plus 4, Commodore Amiga, Dragon 32 and 64, MSX, Oric, Tatung Einstein, Mematech MTX, Sam Coupe with an interesting expanded version. I've even come across versions for computers and devices I've never heard about before. For example, the Czechoslovakian computer PMD-85, the Yugoslavian Oreo. There's even versions for some early portable computers with LCD screens similar to the Amstrad Notepad. like the Cambridge Computer Z88, and there's apparently even a version for a calculator, namely the HP48. Then there's of course the apps for iPhones and such like that appeared in the early 2010s. But here with the Amstrad version, I'll just be comparing it with the Matthew Smith Specky original. And here we are on the very famous first screen, the Central Cavern, which is pretty much identical to the Specky original. In both layout, aspect ratio, screen size, movement of sprites and controls, etc. It's a very famous start to a game. And we have 20 caverns, rooms or levels in total, with 3 lives. You may have spotted at the very start of that level, I switched on music. Music isn't on by default, instead just sound effects, because music can get a little bit annoying, but there is a key to turn the music on and off if you so wish to. The music, of course, here in game is In the Hall of the Mountain King by Greig. So there you go. So I said I'd be comparing this to the Specky original. We noticed on the title screen the title screen was completely different and less colourful than the Specky version, and there are different colour schemes used for rooms. Unfortunately though, less colours because it's done in the Amstrad Mode 1, which is higher resolution, but it matches the sort of pixel size of the Specky version of the ZX Spectrum generally. But it's limited to 4 colours, as most of us should all know by now. Whereas the Spectrum can't show more than 4 colours on a screen. So you may get an extra couple of colours on the Specky version. But the Amstrad does use different colour schemes for the levels compared to the Specky one. We'll have a couple of other changes as well to note as we go along. But in terms of feel and the controls, it's like identical to the Spectrum original. The feel of the jumps in terms of the arc of the jump and gravity is near identical as well. And they've done a fantastic job converting the game. So let's talk about the coders here quickly. So coding here was handled by Derek Peter Rosen and a chap called Steve Weatherley. They would both handle the Jet Set Willy conversion on the Amstrad 2. And their only other Amstrad credits I can find online are Vindicators for Derek and Heartland for Steve. Both excellent and impressive games, actually. I have a feeling that both of them did more on the Amstrad than what we have credits for online. So, yeah. For Steve Weatherley, there's an excellent interview with him specifically about coding the Amstrad version in Retro Gamer magazine, issue 216. Oh yeah, actually, for next difference to the Spectrum original, we have a different named room here. So this was originally called Eugene's Lair in the Specky version, and has been named to Eugene Was Here. Note the timing there. That's the first difficult timing I found in the game there. When to move on that moving platform to jump over Eugene. Which, of course, Eugene is a reference to the legendary coder Eugene Jarvis of Defender, Robotron, Blaster, Smash TV, etc. fame. And make sure you leave that one item to last. Now, apparently that's a stack of credit cards, according to Matthew Smith. It just looks like a rectangle box thing. Anyway, wait for Eugene to be at the top of the screen, and the screen goes mental because he will start immediately coming down as soon as you pick up that last item there. And of course, here's a Pac-Man themed level. The Pac-Men have legs though, and watch out for the ghost there on that platform. So yeah, we were talking about Steve Weatherley, excellent interview with him in the Retro Gamer magazine. He was the one, of course, to handle the Amstrad conversion. And apparently this was his first project working for software projects, and was actually his first ever professional game. But he was working alongside Derek on this. Now, he confirms that this wasn't exactly a port to the Specky original. In fact, they actually wrote the whole game from scratch, to quote him. Which is even more impressive given how close to the Specky original this looks and plays. Now, he confirms that Matthew Smith wasn't at all involved with this version, but he did take a look at it and give some notes, apparently. Steve goes on to say that in terms of coding, they did things a bit differently and a lot more efficiently than Matthew, like removing the need for 2 off-screen copies of the screen used for composing the room, and then erasing, then redrawing the sprites, which is incredibly inefficient. But really, who cares when the original works so well? It's more of a geeky thing, I suppose. But yeah. And just to confirm, of course, as well, they both did the music together. The title screen music was The Blue Danube by Strauss, and the in-game music we hear here is In the Hall of the Mountain King by Greig, or at least a very short excerpt of it. This level can catch you out with the red kangaroo at the bottom there. The rest of the level is actually relatively easy. Again, with Manic Miner, it's a game that if you've played enough times, you could probably complete with your eyes closed, apart from maybe the last few levels. Apart from some really tricky situations. Did you see the timing there? Need to jump over that kangaroo and avoid that deadly spider. But yeah, it's definitely a game that once you practice the levels over and over, you can work out kind of a route to go and know when to jump at certain points. Like that conveyor belt pushes you right, so you've got to watch out for the barrel there. And obviously this is a homage to Donkey Kong with the moving barrels there. And you've got a strange creature at the top of the screen called the Kong Beast. And Manic Miner meets the Kong Beast. And we're collecting bananas as well. It doesn't really look like Donkey Kong, but he's called the Kong Beast anyway. And actually what's interesting here is you have a choice on this level. You can actually choose to kill him or not. So you got a choice of being a pacifist or a Kong murderer, a Kong Beast murderer. So you see that switch next to him in the middle of the screen. You can choose to let him drop to his doom if you want to. You can actually escape now, but I'll show you what happens. I'll be an evil git here and be nasty to the Kong Beast. Even though he's not exactly being nasty to me. A bit of a tight jump here. There you go. So pixel perfect jumps, but they never feel too impossible. Anyway, here we go. Whee! Splat. There we go. The poor Kong Beast. So yeah, that's definitely a good interview to read in a Retro Gamer magazine with coder Steve Wetherill. But yes, what else do we have to talk about there? I actually blathered on quite a bit already. We talked about specky differences. I think I will talk about one of the big ones, which is the final room, because there's a fair bit to talk about there, and will only be a short time on that room. So the most notable difference between the Amstrad and Specky versions is the final level, or room 20, called the Final Barrier on the Specky, and it's significantly different. Now the level 20 we'll see when we get to it later is called This, Folks, is the Last Cavern. And sort of the bottom half is the same as the Specky, but now there's a top half to collect keys from, which in the original Specky version didn't exist. Instead, there was a nice view of a sun rising over a lake, grass fields, and Miner Willie's house. It's a bit of a shame then that it was changed, because that did feel like you reached the end of the game. And there isn't really an ending sequence in either version, which makes the last room on the Amstrad version a tad disappointing, especially because on the Specky version you get a different sound effect when you reach the exit. The sound goes all mental or whatever, and you see the Miner Willie sprite outside his house to signify he's escaped. Instead, the Amstrad version skips that and loops back to the start, just like the Specky one essentially does. So, oh well, I've given away a bit of the ending there. Steve Wetherill couldn't remember why that was missing on the Amstrad version or changed. I think it was lack of memory. And I think he ran out of space to do it. Oh, you can tell here that Matthew Smith saw Return of the Jedi at the cinema before making Manic Miner, because we're in the Endorian Forest. Now, what's happened? Where do we go in Return of the Jedi? The Forest Moon of Endor. And yes, those are bloody Ewoks. Bloody Ewoks, I can't stand them. Hugh comments we're going to see comments on the video now about Ewoks and me being an Ewok. From those in the know, I get trolled by my community. I get called an Ewok by my missus a lot, and the community has taken it upon themselves to troll me constantly for being an Ewok. So anyway, less said on that, the better. Attack of the Mutant Telephones. This was Matthew Smith's favourite sprite in Manic Miner, apparently. The telephones with the moving receivers there. Who remembers telephones, eh? This ages the game even more. I was a bit lucky and jammy on this level, actually. You may notice in a couple of places, I actually made a couple of mistakes on how you should attack and attempt this room, but I got through it anyway. I got through it. Let's have a look for magazine reviews. So, as always, we look for the review in Amstrad Action magazine, and it was indeed reviewed in their very first issue in October of 1985. You can find it on page 82. Ironically, reviewed next to another legendary platformer in Chucky Egg, which itself only received a measly 78%. Actually, we'll come back to the review in a second, because we have return of the Alien Kong Beast. It's now an Alien Kong Beast, but it is returning. As you can see there, Switch there has opened up a door to the right of the central section there. And we've got an awkward barrel to avoid here. So the best thing to do is actually wait in the exit there and let it pass overhead safely. You get those bananas above your head as the last two things. A very, very difficult jump there, believe it or not, because what you want to do is jump over that first bush, but land on the conveyor belt and not on the pink platform like we are now, so you can get to that bottom area. Otherwise, it's very tricky to get round and back to get that banana at the very bottom of the screen. That was there. Anyway, we shall kill the Kong Beast again. And we can jump down here, collecting bananas on the way, straight to the exit. No, bear in mind, of course, as well, there is full damage on Manic Miner, so be wary of that. I hate full damage on platform games. It's not so bad on Manic Miner as such compared to some other platformers we've played recently, but I still wish there wasn't full damage. But hey, adds the challenge a bit, and I suppose after you've played this game enough times and learnt the rooms and the routes through them, the safest routes and the timings, it does add an element of extra challenge, which is probably needed. So yeah, we're talking about the Amstrad Action review. And yeah, as I was saying, it got reviewed next to Chucky Egg, which got a measly, in my eyes, 78%. It's only a short review for Manic Miner, as there's loads of games they reviewed in that first issue. And the only real complaint is that the music and sound effects may annoy. Fair point, actually. To be honest, I don't really get sick and tired of that Hall of the Mountain King that much, actually, if I'm honest. Anyway, they rated the graphics at 68%. Sonic's at 41%. I keep screwing the timing here on the conveyor belt. Grab factor 71%. Staying power 61%, with an overall AA rating of 64%. Wow. That's quite a low score, really. I mean, interestingly, on the same page, alongside the Chucky Egg review, they also gave the significantly inferior, but still beloved by a few, and similar platformer, Sir Lancelot, the exact same score of 64%. Like, what? My guess is that the reviewer was burnt out on so many platformers they had to review for that issue. Because the thing is, it was Manic Miner that inspired them all and spawned all these clones. That's the poor reviewer probably had to review bloody tons of that issue. But Manic Miner got there first and did it best. I mean, anyway, it is fair to say that the game Manic Miner and its style aged pretty quickly even at the time. No thanks, in part, to all the clones that followed. But it's still the daddy and the king, and holds its own, with it still being fun to play today. Even this level here, the Skylab landing bay, sometimes gets me, but watch those things falling. They actually fall in the same pattern every time, and you can work out a safe route. The thing is, though, in terms of platformers, Manic Miner got it all right, and right first time round. Platformers live and die on their level design, tight responsive controls, and fast but fair gameplay. That includes things like getting the jump arc and gravity right on falling. Manic Miner nails it, and so does the Amstrad version, like the Specky version. So it was still good fun for me making this long play in 2021. Imagine what it was like the first time round in 1983, when nothing else really existed like this. Sure, there was platformers, but nothing as slick and just well done. It was platforming perfection at the time. I want to give a review score now. I'll give this an 8.5 out of 10. I'm only knocking off half a point given its age, but Willy still holds his own against Mario and all the other platformer stars that followed in his wake. As we make it to the 16th cavern, and obviously Mr. Smith had run out of ideas for naming his caverns. I'm not quite sure what those creatures are, actually. To me, they're waving flags. Crabs waving flags, maybe? I honestly don't know. Now watch out for this conveyor belt there. Actually, it's going in one direction, and don't go for that item just yet because the exit is above you and you can't get above it again if you've missed any of the items. Apparently, I think these are supposed to be stacks of credit cards again. On the previous level, the bank, did you know there was checks that were bouncing up and down? Probably a Finley Bell reference to bounce checks and money that Matthew Smith never got back in the day. Anyway, this is one of the toughest levels, and if you follow my exact timing and route here, this will get you through. This took a lot of practice. Again, it's like once you crack it and know what to do, you can pretty much sail through this game. But this one still gave me a lot of trouble. This level in this room, the warehouse, and there you go. And those are the software. That's the software project logos there, moving up and down. Right, here we go. Level 18, the Amiibotrons Revenge. Get some difficult jumping, avoiding. I think they're supposed to be mine carts, maybe, or maybe one of those things you used to get on the you see on old-fashioned movies with railways. We'd have two people pushing up and down a thing to move a cart along a rail track, like you'd see in old westerns. Maybe it's something like that. Do you know what I'm talking about? Anyway, the Amiibotrons are not actually that hard to avoid. It's just those things on wheels. There's only one key to collect here. And we're back to keys again to collect. So yeah, I think the key to this game is to be patient as well. And just get your timing right. Even if it means waiting for an absolute age. Oh, that was close. Look how good the collision detection is on the game though, guys. There's no sort of giant invisible rectangles and squares around sprites. I was able to avoid that green thing on wheels there. I actually avoided just the central bit and dropped down the side of it, which was in line vertically with one of the wheels, and it didn't kill me. So there's not like an invisible square around the entire sprite there. So that's really, really, really good stuff. Really good stuff. Oh, the solar power generator. Oh, very famous room here. Now, solar power generator depletes your air supply when you hit it. So your air supply is essentially like kind of like your energy bar, really, and timer for the level. That was a tight jump. Oops, you screwed up there. I found if you just wait a little bit longer here, you might save a bit of air from it hitting you. It's almost random with how the beam from the solar power generator moves, but sometimes it does feel like there is a bit of a pattern to it. I can never really quite work it out. The trick here really is just to move as quick as you can on this level, following the routes that I'm doing here. There's quite a difficult jump here, and I actually miss it there. because not only when we move, when we land on that moving platform, we've got to time our jump over the yellow ball, and you can only do it at certain points. Again, so you got to get that just right. Air supply running very low here. And you often scrape by on this level. That was close as well. And here we go, guys, as it says there. This, folks, is the last cavern. And as I mentioned earlier, this is quite significantly different to the Specky version, which is called the Final Barrier. So the top half of the screen on the Specky version, above the Amiga symbol and where the birds are flapping across the screen, was like a nice picturesque scene of a sun rising over a lake with some green grass and Minor Willie's house up to the top right there of the screen. And when you complete it on the Specky version, you get some extra crazy sound effects, and you see the Minor Willie sprite now outside his house. Unfortunately, that's not the case on the Amstrad version. I believe they apparently ran out of space and memory, but they did manage to code in, though, an extra bit of the level there of the extra keys above and these flapping birds. That is the one major difference between the Amstrad and the Specky versions. I mean, as for a version to go for, the Amstrad version probably is arguably the most faithful to the Specky original out of all the versions, apart from those minor changes. For example, I'm told the Commodore 64 version has really iffy collision detection, apparently, and the BBC Micro version plays really slowly. There we go, as we complete the game! Hurrah! So what we lose in a few colours and a different ending, we gain in improved sound and music from the Specky version, but for argument's sake, let's just say Matthew Smith's Specky original is the one to go for. Well, so the game loops here, of course, no ending. And we'll show you the famous game over screen. Which you will see I'll use at the end of all my videos. You will see that in about 30 seconds. And there you go, Manic Miner on the Amstrad, the famous Monty Python foot there. And back on the title screen for a quick blast of, what's it called again? The Blue Danube by Strauss. Also, of course, used in another famous game, early classic, Elite. So there you go, Manic Miner on the Amstrad. I'll give you an 8.5 out of 10. Some may rate it a lot lower. Some may go, why aren't you rating it higher? It's an absolute classic. Well, it's just on balance, you know. Whilst it has probably aged quite badly, I don't know. The platforming, though, is still solid and it's still fun to play, and it gets so many things right on a platformer that many games years later still got wrong. And as I said a few minutes ago, Willie still holds his own against Mario and all the other platformer stars that followed in his wake. Alright guys, thank you very, very much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you all again very soon. Goodbye.
So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please click a like below, leave a comment, and also subscribe if you haven't already. And over that way, there's another video for you to check out. Zypho, out.